Maybe you clicked just out of curiosity, or maybe, without knowing, you were looking for a quiet corner, a place where the words arrive softly and even the silence feels like part of the conversation. I wrote this story with care, stitching together memories, pain, and small discoveries, hoping that at some point, a piece of it might feel like yours. If that happens, even for a moment, stay. Listen for as long as you want. And if you feel like leaving a small sign you are here, a simple like, a comment, or just a quiet, "I'm here," it means more than you know. From as far back as I can remember, I was the ghost in my own family. My older sister, Olivia, was the golden child. Every birthday was hers. Every framed photo on the wall had her smiling face. She was the future of the family, the one who could do no wrong. Me? I was the kid told to keep my voice down, to stay out of the way. If I laughed too loud, my mom's sharp voice would cut through the house. "Don't bother your sister. She's the one who makes this family proud." Sometimes she wouldn't even look at me when she said it. I'd just feel small, invisible. While Olivia had ballet classes, art lessons, and weekend sleepovers with friends, I spent most of my time alone in my room, reading library books or doodling in an old sketch pad. Even as a child, I knew something was wrong. But back then, I didn't have the words for emotional neglect. The house was full of noise and laughter, but none of it was ever for me. And that's when I started to realize, in my own family, I was just a shadow. I was about 8 when I learned just how invisible I really was. Olivia had been practicing a piano piece in the living room, the kind of soft, elegant music that made my parents beam with pride. I hovered nearby, curious, holding onto the edge of the bench like I always did, hoping maybe she'd show me how to play a few notes, but she wasn't in the mood. "Stop touching my stuff," she snapped. I froze. Before I could move, she slammed the piano lid down. Hard. The wood caught my fingers, and the pain was instant and white-hot. Blood welled up under my nails as I screamed, but it felt like my voice just dissolved into the walls. Mom walked in, saw me cradling my bleeding hand, and laughed. A short, sharp laugh, like my pain was some kind of joke. "That's what happens," she said flatly. "Maybe now you'll learn not to bother your sister." No hug, no Band-Aid, not even a glance to see if anything was broken. I remember running to the bathroom, tears streaming down my face, trying to wrap toilet paper around my fingers. In the mirror, I saw a scared little kid, not even angry yet, just hollow. That night, Olivia got ice cream for playing so beautifully at her recital. I got silence, and that's when the first real scar formed. Not just on my hand, but somewhere deep inside me. A quiet understanding that in this house, my pain wasn't pain. It was background noise. By the time I hit my teens, I had already learned the one rule that mattered in our house: stay invisible. I stopped expecting anyone to ask how my day went, or if my hand still hurt from the piano lid. Instead, I poured my energy into school. I stayed late in the library, buried in books, teaching myself things no one at home ever cared to notice. When other kids went to family dinners or weekend trips, I picked up small jobs, stocking shelves at the grocery store, tutoring younger kids for a few dollars. It wasn't about the money as much as it was about freedom. Earning my own kept me from asking for theirs. But the silence at home was heavy, so I found a way to hold on to the truth. I bought a cheap voice recorder at a thrift store and started saving every cruel word, every dismissive laugh. Mom's voice saying, "You're useless." Olivia's taunts when she thought no one else was listening. Not because I planned revenge. Not yet, but because I needed proof for myself. On the hardest nights, when the loneliness pressed against my ribs, I would play those recordings in secret. Each harsh word reminded me I wasn't imagining it. I wasn't crazy. This was real. And I made myself a promise. One day, I wouldn't need these walls or their approval to exist. One day, I'd be more than the invisible child in the corner. Years later, I had built a quiet life of my own, one that didn't require anyone's approval. I was working as a freelance graphic designer, creating visuals for city events. My name was never on the banners, but my work was everywhere. One spring afternoon, my company was contracted for a major city awards gala. My job was to manage the event's presentation graphics and stage visuals. When I checked the program, my chest tightened. The highlight of the evening. Inspirational Woman of the Year, Olivia Carter, my sister. She walked into rehearsal like she owned the room, dazzling in a white suit, hugging organizers, laughing for cameras. People whispered about how kind, brilliant, and selfless she was. From my quiet spot behind the stage computer, I watched the crowd worship her like she was untouchable, and all I could think about was the girl who once slammed a piano lid on my fingers. The girl who watched me bleed while our mother laughed. The girl who never said sorry. As the crew finalized the last cues for the award sequence, a plan formed in my mind. Sharp, electric, unstoppable. For the first time in my life, I wasn't going to be invisible. I didn't know the exact shape of my revenge yet, but I knew one thing. This stage, this audience, this night would not end the way Olivia imagined. The idea started as a whisper in the back of my mind, but once it took root, it grew fast. I hired a small private media team, professionals who knew how to work quietly. They didn't ask questions, they just followed instructions. We created a separate presentation hidden behind the official event program. It was timed perfectly with the segment announcing Inspirational Woman of the Year, Olivia Carter. The first slide looked elegant. Photos of Olivia smiling, helping at charity events, shaking hands with city officials. Nothing unusual. But then, the transitions would shift. Clips from our childhood. A blurry photo of me at 7 years old, hiding behind a doorway, a bruise blooming across my arm. Then the next, Olivia slamming the piano lid, my little hands frozen in pain. The audio would follow, soft, cruel, undeniable. Mom's voice. That's the price trash pays for existing. Olivia's voice, laughing. I've never considered her my sister. I rehearsed it with the team a dozen times, each clip timed to last just long enough to land like a knife. The more I watched, the calmer I became. This wasn't about screaming or demanding justice. This was about truth, raw and undeniable, spoken in the language the world couldn't ignore. Images and sound. For the first time in my life, I wasn't scared. The girl they tried to erase had finally found her voice, and she was going to speak on the biggest stage Olivia had ever stood on. The ballroom was glowing that night, all crystal chandeliers and soft jazz echoing against marble walls. The city's elite had gathered, politicians, business owners, journalists, all ready to celebrate Olivia Carter, the shining star. I stood in the shadows near the tech booth, my heart steady for the first time in years. The host's voice boomed. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome our Inspirational Woman of the Year, Olivia Carter. The audience erupted into polite applause as Olivia glided onto the stage, her designer gown sparkling under the lights. A bouquet of roses waited in the MC's hands. Then, the first slide appeared on the massive LED screen behind her. Not the official tribute, not the smiling photo with the mayor. A dimly lit picture of a little girl with bruised hands. Me. The room froze. Another slide. Olivia, maybe 16, standing over me with the piano lid slammed down. My tiny hands outstretched. A moment of pure terror captured forever. Then the audio began, soft at first, almost a whisper. Mom's voice. That's the price trash pays for existing. A ripple of gasps spread across the room. Someone dropped a glass. Olivia's smile cracked, then vanished completely. The next clip played, crystal clear. Olivia's voice. I've never considered her my sister. Reporters leapt to their feet. Cameras flashed. The polite applause had curdled into a heavy, stunned silence. I watched my mother, seated in the front row, her face drained of color. She gripped her pearls like they could save her. In less than 60 seconds, the flawless image they had spent a lifetime curating shattered into shards. The hall wasn't just silent anymore. It buzzed with a different energy. Shock, disbelief, and the first hints of public outrage. For the first time, they were the ones shrinking under the weight of a room full of judgment. And I simply stood still, letting the truth speak louder than I ever could. The morning after the gala, my phone buzzed with a single new email. The sender's name froze me in place. Dad. He had never defended me, never even acknowledged the quiet cruelty I endured growing up. For years, he was just absent, even when he was in the same room. With trembling hands, I opened the message. Subject: I should have spoken sooner. I watched the gala last night. I saw everything. I've been a coward for too long, pretending silence was protection. Attached are the recordings I made over the years. The times I overheard your mother and Olivia calling you worthless, laughing at your pain. I don't know why I saved them. Maybe I always hoped I'd find the courage to help you. Use them if you need to end this once and for all. I stand with you now. Dad. The email had a folder of audio files. I clicked the first one. Mom's voice. She's just dead weight. I wish she'd disappear. Olivia's laugh. She's lucky we even let her stay here. My chest tightened, but this time it wasn't from pain. It was relief. Someone had seen me all along. When Olivia and Mom tried to sue me for defamation the following week, claiming I fabricated everything, my lawyer played my father's recordings in court. The room went dead silent. The judge's ruling was swift. The evidence was undeniable. The defamation claim was dismissed. Instead, Olivia and my mother were formally reprimanded for false accusations. For the first time in my life, justice didn't just whisper. It roared. Months passed after the court case. Life was quieter, lighter. My career thrived, and for the first time, my apartment felt like home, a place that was mine alone, untouched by their shadows. One rainy afternoon, a hesitant knock echoed through my hallway. When I opened the door, I froze. Olivia and Mom stood there, soaked and shivering, mascara streaking down their faces. Olivia's voice cracked. Please, we need to talk. I didn't invite them in. I simply leaned against the doorframe, waiting. Mom finally spoke, her words tumbling over each other. We were wrong. I was wrong. No one will work with us now. Our friends, they don't even return our calls. Please, honey, can't you forgive us? Their faces were pale, desperate, so different from the untouchable, arrogant figures I grew up fearing. I let the silence stretch, then gave them the smallest smile. I forgave you a long time ago, because I needed to be free. Hope flickered in their eyes, until I finished. But forgiveness doesn't mean you get a place in my life again. That door is closed. Olivia let out a sob. Mom looked like she wanted to beg again, but I gently shut the door. Not with anger, with peace. On the other side, I heard their footsteps fading into the rain. For the first time in my life, I chose myself. A year later, I signed the lease on a sunlit studio downtown. Exposed brick walls, wide windows, and shelves lined with my sketches. Everything about the place felt alive, like it had been waiting for me all along. I didn't throw a party, no ribbon cutting, no audience. Just me, a cup of coffee, and the soft hum of the city outside. Every morning, I wake up and walk to my studio, open the windows, and let the sunlight flood in. No one is yelling at me to be quiet. No one is shoving me into corners or calling me useless. Clients come to see my work, and they leave smiling, not because I seek their approval, but because my art finally speaks for itself. For the first time, my life isn't about surviving someone else's shadow. It's about living fully in my own light. And that is all the applause I will ever need. Every night, I look down at my hands, the same hands that once trembled in pain under the piano lid. The scars are faint now, almost invisible. But I remember. I remember the silence I carried. I remember the little kid who just wanted to be seen. And I know I set them free. Not Olivia, not my mother. Me. I built a life that doesn't need their approval, their apologies, or their love. The quiet I once feared now feels like peace. I trace the soft lines of my palm and smile. This, this freedom, this calm, is the greatest victory I could ever claim.